Hi parents, today is Tuesday, August 25th, and this is an overview of what we did today. So a lot of students, it was glitching, so when they get to a part of the video, just pause it and have them complete it and then just keep playing. So we started off with attendance and rules, and it was excellent. We got even quicker than yesterday. Then we moved straight into vocabulary. So you can find the vocabulary in week 2, third grade language arts, the yellow. It's all the way behind the crossword. So yesterday was the crossword puzzle. Today, we completed this, and I will put it on their document camera and pause it if your student missed this, please. Okay. So one important thing that I was showing the students that they need to do is after we read the directions, we find the verb. And we always box the verbs and underline the explanation. So we're going to read vocabulary words. That's number 1. Number 2, we are reading the sentence at the left of each picture. 3, I had to write it down here. We are writing. So write the correct vocabulary word in the sentence at the right of the picture. So we discussed how we always are going to box the verb and what it's wanting us to do and put steps so we don't forget anything. And here are the words. So we first read all of our vocabulary words, and then we read these sentences, and they figured out what word would make sense. So I'm just going to skip to silly. So some hairstyles are silly. And then we talked. What would make sense? My mom said that my new hairstyle is silly. But we need a vocabulary word. So what vocabulary word could we put in this blank that makes sense? And nonsense makes sense. So for some hairstyles are nonsense. It works with the sentence. Down here, Jen worried about singing. Jen was blank when she began to sing. So we are underlining the synonyms. We didn't go over synonyms too much, but words that mean the same or like each other. So we underlined worried, and we thought, what other emotion in our vocabulary words would match? And nervous was one. So we just discussed the context clues of the picture and the sentence to come up with a vocabulary word. So definitely pause here if you did not get that. Next, in this packet, I already tore it out, but behind this page, there are vocabulary words. I had them, cut them out, and we don't want to cut them real small. Some people made a beautiful oops of cutting it just directly around it, but they need to write on the back. So we have fumbled, chuckled, trudged, nervous, and nonsense. There was downstairs, and I got rid of that. I just want to focus on these words, so you could throw away downstairs. We wrote the definition, and they helped me come up with the definition for each of the vocabulary words. So this is where I want you to pause, because I'm not going to leave it there for long. So here's nonsense. And on each card, they write definition and sentence. Their homework is to write a sentence for each word on the back, but they need the word in it. So nonsense has to be in their sentence. We have nervous, afraid or worried. We have trudged, to walk in a slow, heavy-footed way. chuckled, laughed in a quiet way, and fumbled. I made a beautiful oops and spelt definition wrong, but did something in a clumsy way. And they need to come up with their sentence. Following our vocabulary, we went into a brain pop about plot. I will put that link in the comment section if you would like to watch that with your student. From the brain pop, we discussed plot. Now, setting is when and where, and then the characters, the main characters of the story. And a lot of students said, I asked, well, what is plot from that video? And they said, oh, the setting, when and where. That's what we learned yesterday. And the plot is actually the events, the main events, the important events in a story. So I told them they're not entirely wrong because when and where is important to a story and it helps the event. But we discussed how plot is the important events, the beginning of the story, the middle of the story, and the end of the story. So I gave them an example of Finding Nemo, and we talked about it a little bit. So in the beginning of the story, Nemo was taken by a scuba diver. The middle of the story, the adventure of Nemo's dad and Dory trying to find Nemo. The end of the story is Marlin, his father, and Nemo are reunited. So that is the beginning, middle, and end of the important parts of the movie. So then, same thing, week 2, it's still in our language arts, yellow. This was yesterday. Should have finished this yesterday. And then we moved to a story. In our story, this isn't our directions, but we did box characters and discuss it's people or animals in the story. And we already knew that from yesterday. Then we skipped to setting, is when and where. And then plot are the important events in the beginning, middle, and end. Our directions, read the story, then answer the question below. We boxed the first verb and labeled it 1 because we are going to read the story. Number 2, it's asking us to answer. So we're going to answer the questions. So we read the story, and before the questions, what I want them to always do, at least in the beginning, because the text is going to get longer and longer, is on the side, write characters and setting, and list the characters, at least the main characters, and the setting. Then we jump to our questions. Now, what I really want our students to get down is restating the question and writing incomplete sentences. So, for instance, when does this story take place? What we did is we restated everything first and then answered it. So, the story took place at 9 a.m. Where we wrote. So, if you want to pause this, you can. And we worked on this. For their homework, though, some still had a few to write. So if they miss something, you can pause. For the homework is the next page. I want them to complete this. They have to write character and setting, fill in the characters, the main characters, and fill in the setting, as well as answer the questions. I also want them to box our verbs and underline the details of what it's asking us to do. Okay. As I have a lot of plans and we don't hit everything, so I scratch off some things we didn't get to, and I'm making sure I just tell you exactly what we did. All right, then we move to math. And I am actually going to put it on me. All right. So what you can practice with your child and give them questions are the 3 forms. So we have expanded form, word form and standard form. What we did is I would give them the expanded form, and I would say, write it in word form. And they would type it in, and I love it. Spelling, I don't care about spelling. I just want their best guess. And so they were typing in word form, and we did that a few times. Then I would give them word form, and they would need to give me expanded form on their whiteboard. Then I would give them standard form, and they needed to give me expanded form. Then I gave them word form, and they needed to give me standard form. So I would just make up numbers. And we did that for a while just for practice. And it was really fun, and I think they enjoyed it. At least I did. And then from there, we went to our actual math homework. We did a little. And we did the first one together. First, I had them label or write down all the forms so they didn't forget. They told me that this was word form, and then we wrote expanded it standard, and they told me the answer. Then we labeled it together. We did it together. So standard, and they need to find expanded in word for homework. They told me this was expanded, and they now need to tell me standard in word, and they need to answer this question at the bottom. So pause that if you need it. Their other homework is this page. I would like them, they don't need to, I would like them to put the two different answers. So for 4,751, it is the value of 700 written in standard form, or they could put they have 700s, because we really want to focus on the value. So they'll finish this page for homework. Then we did the brain activity, and it was so much fun. So let me put that up. Okay. So we did meet the brain. I'll put it on me real quick so you can see the poster. And we only did 2 today. So we did the cerebrum and the prefrontal cortex. And I had them do, what's 2 plus 2? They said 4. And so I told them that's what we were using. Their thinking. This is their thinking part of the brain. And the prefrontal cortex is their decision making. So we discussed that. And they got their Play-Doh. Clearly doesn't look like a brain, because we love beautiful oops and we don't like things to be perfect. So I first had them use any color, and it's the biggest part. So they did their cerebrum, and there's wrinkles. So I just told them they can put the fingernails. Some wanted forks, use their pencil. And then we wrote this at the top: the cerebrum, think, play, draw. Then they added the prefrontal cortex. I just placed it over the blue because it's in the front, and it helps make decisions. And I told them to put it somewhere safe, because it won't stick. It won't stay on the paper. And I just don't want it to get messed up. It doesn't need to dry. It doesn't really dry, but just keep it somewhere safe. And then they need to read 30 minutes, of course. And what I want them to start is I showed them a little bit. And this is not due one day. Like this drawing, they could take their time, do a little bit every day at home. But it is in their week 1 3rd grade activities. We didn't get to it. So it is this portrait. This week they've been working on their biography poem, and we are going to end up typing it. And I want it to be, and I'm going to put it with this portrait of theirs, and still hang it up in the classroom. What they need, and I am so sorry, is I forgot to put a white piece of paper in their folder. So they do need a white piece of paper. They need 8 boxes. So they'll fold it once. They'll fold it again. And then they'll fold it again. And that will give them their 8 boxes. And I didn't really give too much instruction. I just told them to follow the steps. So this is what it will look like at the end. Obviously not completely like that because it's their own work and it will be their name, but they need to follow the lines. It helps guide them so they have correct proportions. And each one is a different step. So they could start working on this. And that is what we did today. So I will upload and post this. All right, thank you guys.